So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Simmons. As you can see, I work in the Dean of Students office at the University of Michigan. I am the program manager for Beyond the Diag. Beyond the Diag is the set of programs that provide support, resources, and information to students who live in the off-campus community around Ann Arbor and the surrounding areas. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you this morning about some of the work that we do with Beyond the Diag. Many of you may be planning to live either off campus this coming year or potentially in the years to come. So this information might be most useful for you right now, or in another 6, 9, 12 months time when you're preparing to live off campus. We will go through the information that will be hopefully helpful to you this morning, and it may prompt questions. There may be things that you want a little bit more detail on. I'm happy to answer those questions. You can post them in the chat, or you can ask them at the end of the presentation. If I could just ask that the questions do come at the end of the presentation. You may find that a question that you wanted to ask does get answered during the presentation, but obviously if it doesn't, if there's something that you want to return to, please by all means ask those questions. My colleague Joe will be answering the questions that he's able to during the presentation, and if there's something that I can return to, I'm happy to come back to that at the end of the presentation. So hope this is going to be a useful session for you. As I say, my name's Mark Simmons, and I'm going to get started now. So this information is primarily focused on the housing available in and around Ann Arbor for this coming fall. I appreciate that for some of you that might not be when you're looking for off-campus housing, but it's also generally useful information for that off-campus housing market. So I oversee the Beyond the Diag program. Beyond the Diag is focused on providing kind of three main elements to it. So it has a function where it provides support, resources, and information to students who live off campus. We also have a program of neighborhood ambassadors, which I'll speak a little bit more on. And we also have an off-campus housing search website, which I'll also go through in a bit more detail. So in terms of the information and resources that we provide to students, that's really covering anything that could impact a student's life where they're living off campus. There isn't kind of anything that we would say, no, we don't work in that area. It could be anything related to their housing. It could be things related to a student's academic support needs. And it could also be anything related to their wider life living as a student in Ann Arbor. We, as a member of the Dean of Students office, we provide a lot of conflict resolution and mediation support for students, as the whole of the Dean of Students office does. Again, that may be specifically relevant to a student's life off campus, or it may be simply because they are a student living in and around Ann Arbor. We work closely with landlords and housing providers in the area, and we have good relationships with many of the landlords. So if there's an issue for a student between them and their landlord, we will often step in and provide some mediation and support to everyone who's involved in that situation. And we work closely with quite a number of community-based organizations. We work closely with, as I say, the housing providers, but also local residents and local community associations. We work closely with the Ann Arbor Police Department, Fire Department, the City of Ann Arbor, because all of them have a key role to play in terms of interacting with and supporting our students. As I mentioned, we have a neighborhood ambassador program where that's student staff members providing peer-to-peer support to students, also actively engaged with organizing activities and programming for students, and just engaging with them at that peer level in terms of key information and activities taking place in the community. I also mentioned that because we're a member of the Dean of Students office, we provide critical incident support. So that's really if a student is having a major issue in their life where they need immediate support and assistance from the university, then the Dean of Students Office is often one of the key places that they will connect with to seek that support and assistance. That could be in relation to their academic needs, but it could also be a non-academic need. It might be a health issue. It might be a financial issue. It might be that there's some sort of personal life crisis happening and they just need some additional assistance. And the Beyond the Diag program will also provide that support within the context of the Dean of Students Office. So as I mentioned, the neighbourhood ambassadors are student staff members. So they are employed by the Beyond the Diag program. They are fully enrolled students, and we ask for them to be upper class undergraduate students or postgraduate students. So students who have experience of both being a student at university and also students who have some knowledge or familiarity with living in and around Ann Arbor. So they can bring that experience of, living as a student off campus, all of the good things about that, the challenges that sometimes come with that, and they can bring their own lived experience and knowledge of navigating some different situations, how to find off-campus housing, some of the good ways of accessing resources and support around the university if you are living off campus. One of the key things that we introduced this year for the first time was we introduced virtual office hours. Like many university resources, we weren't able to meet face-to-face with students this year. Obviously, with the pandemic, we had to change the way that we were engaging with students. And so like a lot of university student-facing resources, we pivoted to providing virtual office hours. So these are set hours during the week between the winter and the fall and winter terms, where our student staff members were available to answer questions and engage with other students who might have support needs as an alternative to not being able to come into the office in person. And we found that that was a really beneficial way for students to ask those questions about living off campus. Although we are planning for this to be an in-person fall semester, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that, we are also still intending to offer office hours, and I think part of that will be virtual office hours. We found it to be a really helpful way for students to engage with us. It seems to be something that a lot of students were enthusiastic about, so I think we are intending to continue that plan. So our primary website for the Beyond the Diag program, you can see it there on the screen. It is offcampus.umich.edu. This is really where we host all of the information regarding life off campus. So there you will find resources, information, support assistance, how to access support, different pieces of kind of advice, hints, tips, etc. And it's where we post our monthly newsletter articles. We have a variety of other useful documents and forms that you might need as a student living off campus. We have videos and other training information that might be helpful. That's also where we host help and information for landlords. We have FAQs on there. And that's also where you can access the virtual office hours sessions. There's a button right there on the homepage. And as I mentioned, that's available during the fall and winter semesters, so between September and kind of the end of April. But if you want to access any information on Beyond the Diag, this website is a good place to start. So in terms of off-campus housing in and around Ann Arbor, there is a really good variety of housing available, different types of housing, different styles of housing, everything from what you might call a kind of typical traditional shared house. So that is a house that just is shared by a certain number of students. And sometimes they're split down into 4, 5, 6, and sometimes even more than that number of bedrooms. We have quite a number of high-rise purpose-built apartment complexes, and many students want to live in those. The majority of those are closer to campus, so if being really close to campus is a priority for you, then that could be an option potentially available. There are quite a few guest rooms. So an owner, you may be renting out a bedroom in their house. So again, in terms of your situation, your preferences, your budget potentially, that might be an option that you want to consider. And there are several hotels in the area that offer short stay plans. So if you think that you want to stay in Ann Arbor, but for some reason maybe you don't need a 12-month lease or necessarily even a 6-month lease, but you're going to be in town for a shorter amount of time, you may want to look into a short stay hotel as a potential option for you. That's obviously also useful if you've got family members who are going to be in town for a certain amount of time, but maybe there isn't space for them to stay with you for the whole of that time. So in terms of our housing search website, it's important to differentiate between this and the Beyond the Diag website. These are two separate websites. They do operate alongside each other, and the website addresses are similar, but they are different. So this website is really our housing search website. It looks very similar to any other kind of commercially available housing search website. So if you look at something like apartments.com, it will have a fairly similar look and feel to that website. It also has a feature where you can search for roommates. So basically, if you're an enrolled student at U of M, you can create a profile on there. You can include information about yourself. If there are things that you want to include as like likes and dislikes and things that you're looking for, etc. It can be a good way of finding a roommate. So if you have a house or a unit that you need one more person for, you can advertise to find a roommate. And similarly, if you are a student who wants to live with someone else, but you haven't yet found that situation, then you can put your information on there and get connected with other students. There's a lot of information and resources on that website. Some of it is very similar and replicated from the Beyond the Diag website, and some of it is additional information that specifically relates to the housing search and lease signing process. The website was redesigned and relaunched in December, so it's very up to date in terms of the look and feel. It is very functional across different technology platforms, so it works great on laptops and mobiles and tablets, any of those things that people might use to search for housing. So I'm going to take you through the website really quick. So this is basically the home screen. When you first visit the website, this is pretty much what it looks like. If you click on the housing tab, which is right up here at the top, you can see already that there are several housing searches that just come up randomly. You can see on the left-hand side here that you've got a lot of housing options. Each one is indicated by one of these blue dots. And you can see, as you would expect, that the closer you get to the central campus here in Ann Arbor, the higher number of housing options are available. And obviously, as you get further away from the city centre, the more that those available housing options start to thin out, as you would probably expect. I'm just going to go back to the previous page and take you to the website real quick, and just spend a quick couple of minutes showing you the website. So if you first visit the website, this is exactly what it looks like. You can see here that this is what you'll be able to see. So you can scroll down. It's got various bits of information here. You can see that we have a housing fair coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. If you are a student, then this is where you can register. As I mentioned, you can post if you want to find a roommate, or you are someone you want to find a house. You can put that information. We've got information there about our social media. And as I mentioned, when you click on the housing tab, which is really the main tab that you would want to visit, you can see here, this is very much a similar screen to what we showed you before. You've got all of these drop-down tabs here at the top of the screen. You can search by price, pretty self-explanatory. The number of bedrooms or bathrooms that you want, the type of buildings, you've got apartments, houses, condos, etc. The more tab is quite useful, particularly if there's a question around when you want to move in, and also the length of lease. I mentioned earlier that most leases tend to be 12 months long. So they'll start, say, mid-August and they'll finish early to mid-August. That will work for most people, and most housing providers will do that as their default option. If for some reason you do not want a 12-month lease, you will, number one, want to make sure that that's an option offered by the housing provider, and make sure that you're searching for that when you start your housing search. So I'm going to return to the presentation right now. So last October, November time, we started a campaign called Take Time Before You Sign. As with many activities that we held during the last academic year, we obviously weren't able to do a campaign or engagement in the normal way. This is something that we would have done more as a kind of workshop setting, where we would have had information and a presentation and a question and answer setting in person, actually at the on-campus residences, but for obvious reasons, we weren't able to do that. So we developed a series of videos that provide a lot of that really valuable information prior to you beginning the house hunting process. This is all really helpful information, guidance, hints and tips that we would want you to be aware of before you start searching for housing off campus, certainly before you sign a lease. Gives you some do's and don'ts and things to keep in mind. It gives you really helpful stuff like questions that you might want to ask a landlord, how to find a roommate, how to think about how to choose a roommate. We have 7 videos. They're all available. You've got the website there. So it's on our off-campus, it's on the Beyond the Diag website. They're all listed in one place. Alternatively, if you just Googled Take Time Before You Sign at the University of Michigan, it should bring it up. So I'm going to really quick show you one of the videos. It's just about a minute and a half long, but it gives you a little bit of a taste for the videos, for the vibe, and for the type of information that you can expect to see there.
Hi everyone, my name is Severina Ndigama. I'm a senior in LSA majoring in philosophy with a minor in religious studies, and I'm the student body vice president. Navigating the world of housing in Ann Arbor can seem intimidating, but taking time before you sign can save you money and reduce your stress in the long run. To get started, check out what you should know before you rush into signing a lease.
Here are the top 5 things to know before you sign a lease. Number 1. Leases are binding legal contracts. Once you sign, you may be liable for all rent due. Don't sign a lease until you are ready to commit. Number 2. Be practical. Make sure your housing costs will fit your budget and the location is convenient. Number 3. Choose your roommates wisely. Take time to get to know other people well before deciding to live with them. Number 4. Stuff happens. Life is unpredictable and plans can change. Waiting to sign a lease may avoid problems down the road. Number 5. There will be plenty of housing available, so take your time and make the best housing decision possible. Have questions? Reach out. Beyond the Diag, Student Legal Services, First Year Experience, or Fraternity and Sorority Life.
So that, as I mentioned, was a really great campaign. We developed it as a video campaign mainly because we had to. Obviously, we weren't able to do those in-person events in October and November that I mentioned, but it turned out that actually developing those short, snappy videos as a series of informational, pieces of information was a really helpful way to present those for students who wanted or needed to have that information before they started searching for housing off campus. So we recognize that many students who are coming to the university this coming September may be coming to the university for the first time, because obviously if they're a first-year undergraduate, this might be their first experience of being at university. But we also recognize that there are going to be students who are living off campus this fall semester, who may not have been to the university, may not have lived in Ann Arbor before. That may be because they are rising sophomore students who, for some reason, they weren't at the university in person because, again, you know, pandemic and all of the different things with that. It may be that they're transfer students, it may be that they're international students and so weren't here in person previously. And we recognize that for those students, not just living off campus, but living in Ann Arbor in general is going to be a new experience. And the university really wants to offer as many opportunities to get to know the university, get to know the city, and get connected with each other as students, with the resources and support and valuable connections that can exist here at U of M. We provide so much support and so much assistance to students in different spaces, and we really want to make sure that that information is available to students no matter where you're living in the city, whether you're living on campus or off campus. We're going to provide that. And one of the key ways that we're going to be doing that, which is a new addition this year as part of our Welcome to Michigan program, is we are going to be putting on events at the university and also in the community that are going to be specifically geared towards students who are living off campus, which is a new and a different thing that we've not done before. As I mentioned, they're really going to be aimed at students who are living off campus. So that may apply to you or it may not. Those are intended to be building communities, develop friendships, increase familiarity with the city in general and with some of the community partners that we work with. And as I mentioned, also raise your awareness about the support and resources that are available from the university. These events will be focused on students who are living in some of those purpose-built apartments that I mentioned that are very close to the university in most parts. They'll be incorporated into the Escapade event that takes place in early September. And that will be likely located in the Michigan Union, which is one of the key buildings here in the middle of campus. And we will also be laying on an event for students who are living in the wider neighborhoods and the wider community. And these, although we haven't completely finalized the locations, they will likely be located in a local park or something like that, where students often like to gather in and around their communities. And we'll be facilitating that probably with some food, with some entertainment and music maybe. And again, opportunity to engage and connect with each other and with some of those university resources that I mentioned. As you'll have seen from when we briefly went to the off-campus housing website, there is a virtual housing fair taking place on July 13th, so in just about 10 days from now. That will take place between 12 and 2 p.m. Eastern time. And that event will offer you an opportunity to chat live with housing providers who have availability. You'll be able to visit, quote unquote, visit off-campus properties. Many of them have video tours or virtual walkthrough tours. They often have prizes and other giveaways. So if you take part in their event or you provide your information to them, you can get entered into prize draws, or sometimes they have iPads or Amazon vouchers or TVs, different things like that, that are pretty attractive prizes. If you are interested in participating in that event, you're welcome to register on the offcampus.umich website. There's an article on there on the homepage of the website that you can read and then register there. And then closer to the time, you will get information about how to log on during the event. I'll emphasize the fact that this is primarily focused on off-campus housing options for this coming fall semester. So if you already have your housing set for the coming fall semester, you're very welcome to take part in the event. But if you have questions or are focused on where you want to live the following September, so September 2022, just bear in mind that the providers will likely be mostly focused on their availability for this coming September. So just keep that in mind in terms of how you might want to interact with that event. So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to hear the information we've provided about off-campus housing in and around Ann Arbor. And I'm going to close out the presentation and happy to hear any questions you might have. If anyone does have a question, you're very welcome to add that to the chat now. So I'm just going to pause for a second in case anyone does have a question they want to ask about off-campus housing. Thank you for that question, Eric. So yes, students really can start looking for housing anytime during the year. One thing to bear in mind is that in Ann Arbor, there is an ordinance maintained by the city of Ann Arbor where a landlord is not able to either show a housing unit or sign a lease earlier than 70 days into the current lease. So that basically means that if a lease starts, let's say the middle of August, they will not be able to show that unit to other potential tenants for the following year until probably mid to late October. Okay, what that means is that if you've just moved in somewhere, a landlord can't hound you to sign a lease for the following year, or have other people coming through, showing it, looking at it. It means that you have a little bit of a breathing space. So that 70-day moratorium period applies to all housing in the city of Ann Arbor. It only applies to the city of Ann Arbor itself. So if you're looking at housing elsewhere near Ann Arbor, such as the city of Ypsilanti or other places, they have different rules. But other than that 70-day moratorium, you can really search for housing whenever you want. And our website is always up and running. Landlords are always adding their availability, and it's maintained live on there. So anything you see on that website is currently available right now. I think that because of the moratorium period, I would say many students start to look for housing in the kind of October, November period. We generally try and encourage students to wait as long as they can, because we find that, you know, in October, it's sometimes hard to predict what you're going to be doing and where you might want to be living, and critically, who you might want to live with 9 months into the future. So you might make a decision in October that by April or May or June might not be the same decision that you would make. We would say waiting until after the winter break, so waiting until January, February, there's going to be no disadvantage in terms of finding housing available. And it gives you a little bit more time just to consider some of those questions in terms of where you want to live, what your budget is, what your plans are, who you want to live with. Again, going back to that take time before you sign campaign, those are a lot of the questions that really are covered by that campaign, are the kinds of things that we want you to think through. So we've had a question here asking, what are the benefits of signing a lease for 12 versus fewer months, especially if you're only planning on living in Ann Arbor during the school year and you're planning to move home during the summer? It's a great question. For some people, for example, if you are a postgraduate student or an international student, or you are a student who is planning to be in Ann Arbor during the summer months, maybe you're going to be working, maybe you have an internship, maybe you have another thing going, maybe you're taking classes over the summer, maybe you have other things going on that mean that staying in the city is beneficial to you, then those are all really good reasons why a 12-month contract might be beneficial to you. I will say that most landlords, not all, but most landlords will offer a 12-month contract either as the default option, potentially as the only option. So if you want a contract that is not 12 months long, if you want a contract that is 6 months or 9 months long, you will need to make sure you ask about that before you sign a lease. What you will not be able to do is change the length of your contract once you've signed it. If you sign a 12-month contract, but then realize, actually, I don't need a 12-month contract, it will be very, very difficult, if not impossible, for you to negotiate changing the length of that lease once you've signed it. It might be possible for you to potentially sublease your unit, although you will also want to look into the rules around that and what your landlord has to say about that before you sign the lease, because again, once you sign the lease, you are in a binding legal contract, and it is challenging, if not pretty much impossible, to change the terms of that contract once you've signed. Just going to pause for another second, see if there are any other questions. Doesn't seem like it. So, okay, I hope that that information was really helpful. As I say, my name's Mark Simmons. I am the program manager for Beyond the Diag. You can find our information at offcampus.umich.edu. If you do have other questions or want to reach out and get in touch with us, you are more than welcome to do that, and I'll be happy to help in any way that I can. Thank you for being a part of today, and look forward to seeing you in Ann Arbor soon.